Good evening. My name is Don Fick, and I'm an amateur astronomer based in St. Louis. And we're happy to welcome you tonight to our webinar from the Library Telescope team. So we have a great program for you tonight. We've had a Library Telescope team that's been operating for several years, trying to promote actually the Library Telescope program in the U.S. and also internationally. And we've been doing monthly programs on the third Wednesday of each month. Our last month's program was Modifying the Library Telescope. And if you mark it on your calendar, our next month's program will be on January 20th, and it'll be Fun at the Telescope. And we'll talk in that program about taking photos with your phone of the night sky, and also different types of books you can read, whatever else is at the telescope. But tonight's program, we've had a lot of questions about how to navigate the night sky, a lot of questions about tools that you can use and where to get those tools. And so we have a couple of different astronomers here, that John Goss of the Astronomical League and Chuck Sims of the Astronomical Society of Eastern Missouri, that will share some of their tips. Now, I'll tell you up front, we only have like 20-30 minutes tonight to get this program done. So we're not going to be able to go to in-depth to any type of a particular app or technique, but we'll give you some ideas of what you can do. And we do have a place called librarytelescope.org/tools that we have a number of different links down there that you can see, where you can find different apps that at least a lot of us find very useful. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Goss, and he'll get us started here.
Okay. Thank you, Don. My name is John Goss. I'm former president of the Astronomical League. For those of you who don't know much about the Astronomical League, we're a group of astronomers numbering about 18,000 spread across the country. And we are hail from many different clubs, 300 clubs or so. And we have a national organization called the Astronomical League. Tonight, I'd like to talk about a couple things. First of all, I bet you a lot of viewers aren't really familiar with the Library Telescope program. So I'd like to take a few minutes and give a quick overview of that program, just so you all know what we're talking about. The Library Telescope loaner program is something that is offered through libraries across the country. The idea is pretty simple. You walk into the library, you check it out, a small telescope, and you just like a book, and you take it home and see some neat stuff in the sky. This is a very good telescope, and let's get into that. It has a few interesting features to it that makes it a very good scope for its size. It's small enough that it's easily portable, but it's large enough that you can actually see some pretty good things in the sky. 4.5-inch aperture, if you want to know, but it's lightweight. It only weighs like 13 pounds, something like that, so you can carry it. It has a nice sturdy mount, none of this wobbly stuff that you set up. You have difficult finding stuff through because the mount is jiggling around too much. It has one eyepiece, but it's a special zoom eyepiece, which essentially goes from about 20 power all the way up to 60 power, something like that. And that's plenty enough to see a lot of detail and a lot of objects in the night sky. It also comes with a nice user's guide, so you know how to use it. As I was saying, you just check it out from the library, you put it in the back seat of your car, you buckle it up like a kid, put with a seatbelt, and drive it home. As I just said, it's only about 13 pounds, so it's easy to take care of that. Big thing, though, is how to find objects. Well, it has a special finder on it called an easy finder, and it's really pretty easy to use. You point the telescope up to your object, such in this case, the moon, and zeroed in on your finder. It's a red dot right in the center. That's where the finder is pointed out. So if you have that located on your target, in this case the moon, you look through the eyepiece, and it should be on whatever you want to find, whatever you want to see. It's really easy to use. There are two basic things to keep in mind, which are kind of humorous in a way, but it's truthful. Telescope's very sturdy. It's been made even a little more rough and tough, but still never drop the telescope. And the second rule is never, ever look at the sun with it. It is not designed, it is not equipped to look at the sun. Considering that this telescope has the equivalent light gathering capacity of your eye of something like 250 eyes worth, you can imagine how bright the sun would be through this telescope. It would cause instantaneous eye damage. So you don't want to mess with that. People ask me, what can you see with this little telescope? Well, pretty much a lot of the things that you'd like to see if you're a beginning stargazer, beginning sky watcher, amateur astronomer. Everyone likes looking at craters on the moon. Okay. The planets, you can see Venus. Crescent of Venus is pretty nice. Or we have a special classification called deep sky objects, which are nebula and galaxies and such. Well, this is a drawing that I personally made through the library telescope of the great nebula in Orion, star-forming nebula called M42. We have our lowest power at 20x. It has a nice wide field of view. I increase it by 3 times, go up to 60x. It really zooms in to see some of the more detail in the nebula or whatever object you're looking at. So that's basically the entire program right there for the library telescope. I've been involved with this for 9 years. The club I belong to, which is in Roanoke, Virginia, has placed about 15 of these things out there to different libraries. People ask me, well, how do you do this? How do you afford to do all this? Well, the funds for doing this can come from several places. Obviously, the library itself can provide the money. Sometimes interested library patrons provide the money. Sometimes the clubs themselves do. So we also found Friends of the Library organization really like this type of program, and they will, at least a lot of times, will help fund the program. But it's a great program to get involved with. The second part of our program, which is really the meat of what I want to talk about, is how to find things in the night sky. You have to know how to use a telescope, which the library telescope is easy to use, and I won't go into all the details on how to use it, but it's a good little scope. It does what you need. But the other thing that people ask, okay, they ask me, how do I set up a telescope? Okay, the library telescope is pretty easy. They also ask, how do I find things in the night sky? And that is an art. It's a skill. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. First thing I advise people, if you go outside at night, know which way north is, know which way south is. And I generally ask people to face south, because most of the maps that you use to find stars and such are drawn so that south is kind of down towards the bottom of the map. It's and finding things in the sky with a map isn't all that hard. If you're first doing it, it might seem overwhelming, but keep in mind it's a lot like looking at a map of the United States for the first time, and someone asks you how to find Michigan, and if you don't live in Michigan, you may not know how to find it. But the first time you look at a map of the United States, you'll get an idea of where the different states are and where the Great Lakes are, and there's Michigan. It's the same with the map of the sky. You don't know where the different constellations and stars are, but once you figure out where 1 or 2 of them are, you can easily orient yourself so you can find the others. Now, this map it's a monthly map that the Astronomical League produces. We have it on our league website, which is undergoing renovations right now, so it may not be available. We also have it on the Astronomical League Facebook page, and it's on the Library Telescope Facebook page. So it's available every month out there for anyone to use, free to download. And it's updated, as I said, it's updated every month. When you start looking at a map like this, you have to have an idea on how big things are or how small things are in the sky. I mean, this little map here, if it's on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, it's only like 7 inches wide. And you got to think in your head how big that 7 inches is compared to the huge sky above you. So it gives you an idea that you got to kind of get an idea of how big or how small some of these constellations are. The moon. We all know how big the moon is in the sky. Well, the moon, if you put 360 moons side by side, it will stretch across the entire sky. So you can see that the sky is pretty big, the moon's pretty small. But what I advise people, map like this is for the December sky. Start out with something that you know or that you can easily find. The Big Dipper is a group of stars that a lot of people know, but unfortunately, in November and December, the Big Dipper is right up towards the northern horizon, right above the top of the screen, and it's hard to find. So in December, I like telling people, okay, look almost straight up, and you'll see something we call the Great Square for obvious reasons. It's square, and its four stars are about the same brightness as those stars in the Big Dipper. So they're not really bright stars, but they're moderately bright. They're fairly easy to see. Go out and find the Great Square. Face south, look almost straight up, you'll find the Great Square. And then just step away, step along to the map, to what the map shows you, such as going directly south from the Great Square on the two westernmost stars. Head directly south. You'll end up at a fairly bright star called Fomolo, and it's far in the south. Go to the two westernmost stars, go far south, you'll end up with at Deneb Katos, kind of a strange sounding name, but it's another moderately bright star. There aren't very many bright stars in the southern region of the sky this time of year in the early evening. So those will stand out, shouldn't be too hard to find. So as you can see, you're starting to step off. It's like once you find Michigan on the map of the United States, you can say, oh, right below that is Ohio. Well, right below the Great Square is Fomolo. And you want to learn more? Okay. You go west along the two southernmost stars from the Great Square, you bump into a fairly bright star called Altair. This is kind of an important star to know because it's a member of a fairly well-known group of stars called the Summer Triangle. Yes, I know it's December, it's not summer, but in the middle of the summer, it's high overhead in the late evening. So it's the southernmost star of the Summer Triangle. Now you know where Altair is. Go further north, you find another bright star called Deneb. Go further west, you'll find an even brighter star called Vega. Those are the three stars of the Summer Triangle. So as you can see, you're kind of jumping along from spot to spot, picking up a few stars, learning a few constellations. Once you know where the Summer Triangle is, you can find the stars of the constellation called Cygnus. It's also called the Northern Cross for obvious reason right there. And it happens to be in the middle of the Milky Way, which is appears to be a softly glowing band of light stretching across the sky. If you're in a dark location, what I mean by dark in this case would be like a dark suburban location to a rural, to even darker than that. You should be able to see the Milky Way. And you just jump along the Milky Way to other star patterns, such as Cepheus, which is this guy right there. Looks kind of like a house. Jump off again to the next one, Cassiopeia, which is like a W. That's a fairly well-known pattern. Jump again to get to Perseus, strange group of stars. Jump again to Auriga and its bright star Capella. And you just do that over and over and over, and you'll learn the night sky that way. It really isn't very hard to do at all. It takes time. I recommend people just getting a map like this or some other similar basic star map, go outside in a lawn chair or put a blanket on the ground and sit down and just look up at the stars. You're going to need a red flashlight, and you should have a red flashlight and not a white one, because your eyes won't become desensitized to the darkness if you use a red light. So you'll be able to enjoy the night sky a little bit better than with the white light. And there are a lot of things on this map that you can see that aren't part of constellations, but they're still up there, such as, I'll just point out a few if I can remember where they are. The Pleiades star clusters right here. So once you know where, let's say, Perseus is, you've learned that. You come right down the spine of Perseus and it bumps right into the Pleiades, and that's easy to see. It's a great binocular object. Right next door to it is the Hyades star cluster. It's another great binocular object. That's just why we have the binoculars there. Taking your pair of binoculars and just scanning along the Milky Way, up and down it, you'll see many bright areas and dark regions. You'll see some fuzzy spots. You'll see a lot of stars, a lot of really dim stars. What the fuzzy spots generally are either star-forming regions that are nebula, or they are some star clusters, homes to many tens to many hundreds of stars, depending on how big the cluster is. Pretty interesting to see. And you're sitting outside on your blanket with your binoculars. You got all night to do this. Just keep practicing, and the more you do it, the better you get. There's another object I want to point out on the map. It's the planet Mars. The planets change their position every month with respect to the background stars. So next month, Mars won't be right here. It won't be right to the lower left of the Great Square like it is now. It'll have moved along its orbit around the sun, and it shifts its position among the stars. It'll be up here somewhere, by the way, in January. So maps like this can help you find planets. Now, Mars is really the only bright planet, as you can see right now in the evening, although I'm not really quite being clear on this because I'm going to talk about something in just a moment, something else in just a moment. But anyway, you can see some planets, and they're great to look at too, obviously. Now, I have a detailed map right here of what happens right after sunset. Let's say about 60 minutes after sunset. From where I live, that's about 6 o'clock. What happens over the next week and a half or so, you have Jupiter and Saturn in the sky, low in the sky, 60 minutes after sunset. And over the next 10 nights or so, Jupiter moves, creeps closer and closer to Saturn each night. And on December 21st, they appear to merge. Unless if you have really keen eyesight, you'll still see two separate points of light, but a lot of people will see them blend into one bright light. Now, this is interesting to see. It's fairly rare. It hasn't happened this closely since 1623. Unfortunately, the folks in 1623 didn't see it because it happened. The Jupiter and Saturn were too close to the sun for them to see it. So it really happened in the daytime sky for them. But it's pretty rare event. It's something that you should be looking forward to. But as you can see, though, we have side maps like this, which help explain and give a little bit more detail on something coming up. Now, that is a kind of a summary of what the maps are in the night sky. We have, Astronomical League produces this one, and get the next one. We also have a Spanish language version of it, and which is very popular. So that's good. We get to reach a lot more people that way. And we also have one more map, which I'd like to cover here briefly. Something what I just said here about Jupiter and Saturn coming together. Generally, every month there's an interesting sight to see in the sky. December, it's this one, Jupiter and Saturn. In January, it's going to be something else. In February, something else. So each month, we'd like to come out with a different map, essentially saying that if you only have enough time to find one neat thing in the sky, this is the one you ought to find. So as you can see, it gives a nice map of the sky of what's going to happen, and sometimes it gives a binocular view of what you can expect to look through binoculars. So just about anybody can do this as long as you have clear weather. Suburban skies are darker. Urban skies, like downtown in a brightly lit area, you're not going to see very many stars at all. So something like this isn't going to be very useful for you. But try and do this, and it'll be pretty cool. The library telescope is ideally suited for something like this. The bright planets or bright star clusters or bright nebula, you can pick up with the library telescope and find it very, very interesting. And I always like telling people, hey, if you don't like it, then you can always return the telescope back to the library and move on to something else. But if you do like it and you like it a lot, then you can turn around and maybe purchase your own telescope, something more suitable for what you exactly want, something a little larger perhaps. But it's a great way to get started in the hobby, the very rewarding hobby of stargazing. We have another section of this program coming up given by Chuck Sims, and I'd like to turn it over to him if he doesn't mind.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Okay, well, let me get off here. There we go.
All right. I will share my.
There you go.
All right, you should be able to see me. All right, so I'm going to talk about a planetarium software that you can use on your mobile phone or on your laptop too, as we'll do a demo tonight. So there are a number of planetarium programs out there. I'm just going to talk about a few of them here up front. You'll see a lot more out there, but really what I really want to cover is what's common between them. For these are all free ones you can get. There are other ones you can pay. So we're going to talk about the free ones and what you can get for that. So some of these are Solar Walk Light, Go Sky Watch Planetarium, sky view light. You're kind of getting a theme here that there's the word light in some of these. That just means that there is a paid version of this where you get more features out of it. Now, what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to walk through the one called Stellarium Web. This is the only PC-based one that I've got on this list. It has all the common features, which is why I want to show you. And it's just easier to show that one via Zoom than it is do something on a phone. So here's some of the key features that these have in common, and then we'll also cover. There's usually some type of quick view of the object. Some place you can go and say, hey, what are the common objects that I look at? Usually planets, moons, solar system objects. There's usually a search feature where you can find objects when you just can't find them any other way. There's a way to get detailed information. You either click on the object or you go to some special place. You can zoom in. So if you click on, say, Jupiter, you should be able to zoom in and actually see Jupiter up close, or the Orion Nebula, just something. There's usually a way to look at constellations. So there's usually something to look at, and it'll actually either in stick figures or art form show the constellations up in the sky so you can see how the stars line up. With landscape, there's usually some way to remove the landscape so you can actually see objects that are under the horizon. You generally have the ability to change location. So say I want to see what the sky looks like in London or Hong Kong, you can do that. You can change the date and time. So if I want to see what's going to happen tomorrow or next year, or if I want to see what happened 10 years ago, you have that ability too. There's generally some kind of calendar that says here are events that you might want to take a look at. And then some of them, this doesn't always come with the free ones, but a lot of them have observations. So if you're out and you're making observations and you want to track what you're doing, I looked at Jupiter because of the conjunction that John brought up. You have the ability to track that. And the last one is night mode. And as John mentioned earlier, you want to use a red light. In this case, the night mode turns your screen on your phone or your PC red. So your eyes stay dilated more than they would with white or blue light. So with that, I'm going to actually go into the demo. Let me get this down. Yeah, it didn't go down the way I wanted it to. 1 second here, folks. All right, I may have to share my screen again. Can you guys still see me?
Yeah, we can see it fine. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. All right, so this is Stellarium Web, and this is what we're going to walk through and just kind of look at all these common features that I had brought up before. So right off the bat was the what's up in the sky tonight. And just over here, there's this planets tonight. If I bring this up, it brings up this nice little box that says, here are all the objects that you can see easily with the naked eye. So the sun, the moon, and the first 5 planets. Gives her time they rise, time they set, and they give a nice pictorial of day and night. And you can see from the yellow line how they cross over. So you can see what's in the sky easily. So this is a great feature. There are also other things you can do in here, and that is you can view the Milky Way or take it away. You can see the Milky Way right here. If I wanted to, I could get rid of that. The DSS is the Digitalized Sky Survey. What that does, it makes the background stars more vivid. They take pictures that they've taken with some of the larger telescopes, like the Palomar Observatory, and they put them in the background. So, and that just removes those. Meridian line is just a line that runs from north to south. So you can track that, or the ecliptic line, as John was mentioning earlier, that is the line that the planets all travel on. So that's the orbit of the sun. So let me quickly get rid of that. And we'll close that out. Okay. And then I said there is a search feature. I'm going to get rid of that over there, give us a little more room. So with the search feature, if you want to look for something, in this case, I'll just look for Mars since it's right there. And what that'll do is it'll bring up anything that starts with those letters. And then when I click on it, it's going to center it and it's going to give me that detailed information. So remember I said earlier, that's another common feature is to get that detailed information. You could do that with anything. So if I clicked on the Pleiades here, it's going to bring up the detailed information for it too. Then you've got your calendar of events. So this is telling me for December 2020, here are all the interesting things happening. We just have a solar eclipse and a new moon. It does not have the conjunction on here. Oh, yep, it does. Saturn passes within a 1/10 of a degree north of Jupiter. So there's a conjunction coming up on the 21st. So nice calendar of events. And then there's also observation. So here's one I made. So I made an observation of Mars with the naked eye, you know, in St. Louis on this particular day. So good features here. You'll find that in most of them. I'm going to get rid of that, give us a little more space here. And then I said there's ways for you to travel around. So here, it shows that I'm doing this from St. Louis. But let's say that I want to do it from someplace else, like Honolulu, and see what the night sky looks like. And it should still be daylight there. Just click on use this location. Now I'm in Hawaii. Sun's still up. Now what's really cool is, if I come over here, I can change my time. So if I want to see what nighttime looks in Hawaii, I can just up the time a couple hours, and all of a sudden the night stars come up. So with that, and with this, I'm just going to click this, go back. We'll come back to that in a second. And I'm going to head back over to St. Louis again. It's always good to go home after a trip, right? So going back to the conjunction, if I just go back in time just a little bit here, because I want Jupiter to come up here. So if I click on Jupiter, I told you there is a zoom. In fact, I'm going to, I think that centers it for me. There we go. So I'm going to use my mouse for this, but you could also use this plus and minus here, and you'll see this in the apps on the mobile phones. You still have a plus and minus, or you pinch your fingers and spread them out to get more. So here we can see we got Saturn up here, we got Jupiter here. Now you can also see that it's kind of drifting off because this is actually tracking real time. I'm going to pause it just so they're there. Now what's really cool with some of these features is you can do your time travel. I'm just going to do it in minutes. And yep, I want Jupiter in the center. Otherwise it's going to drift off here. Let's try that again. So now when I do minutes, Jupiter stays still, but I'm going to slowly see the moons and everything move around Jupiter. So I like playing with that. It is pretty cool. We're going to zoom back to normal. There we go. All right. So coming down to the bottom, I told you there was constellations. So here's the constellation button here, and you can see now we can see all the constellations in stick form. This next one is the art form. And almost every app has both of these, and you can use them together or separate. It is kind of cool, so you can kind of see how the stars line up to the features of these individual constellations. Landscape, I talked to you about that, so you can clearly see the trees and landscape behind, but I can easily remove that. You can kind of see right here, this bright line, so you can look, it's still there, but now I can see Jupiter and Saturn and the moon, everything that's gone, it's already set below the horizon, but now I can clearly see it again. So we'll put the landscape back on. A couple other features, these aren't on a lot of them, but they are cool features here. And this is the Astronomical grid. And what this does is it makes a grid that goes to the top of the sky. So here I'm going to zoom in so you can see panoramic view of all the sky, and this goes clear to the top. Then you got another one that's the equatorial grid, and this one's going to go from true north. So if I just kind of go this down here, you can see north. So the little star right here, about half a degree off of true north, that's Polaris, our North Star. So just kind of cool little features I like. This next one is the night mode that I talked about. So you can see it turns everything red. So if you've got your computer or you've got your mobile phone out and it's night, you want to have the red light on, just so it keeps your eyes nice and dilated so you can see dark our deep sky objects easier because you can see better in the dark. But more importantly, if you're out with other people, they will get upset if you start shining bright white lights in their eyes, because it takes about 20 minutes for your eyes to get used to the dark again. And they've lost about 20 minutes of time. They could be seeing some really nice objects. So just be aware of that. And that was really all the features that I was going to cover on this. More than happy if there's any questions on other ones or other questions on apps that we can cover. So Don, with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you, Chuck. That's great. So what I'm going to do, just a moment here. 1 second. I'm going to share back my screen. Okay, so thank you both for doing a great job tonight. I know that Chuck went through a number of different apps, and it's probably not easy to figure out where those apps could be found, but go to librarytelescope.org/tools, and we have all of the different links. In fact, the one that Chuck just worked on will be the second from the bottom on that page. And to be clear, that's just a web version, meaning it's like a website that you don't actually have to download any software. You just go straight to that. It's really very good. I actually have a desktop version. You can download it onto your desktop, which is really good. For example, if you don't have internet connection, you can take it out to some remote site and have it loaded on your laptop, and it'll work just fine. And it's also very true, obviously, of the different apps. They work just fine. So I'm looking for questions. I haven't seen any questions coming up here. I'm not sure if there's some folks out there that have any questions in particular. So do you guys have any thoughts about, are there any of these that you like particularly for yourself other than John Goss's great page? By the way, I love the Spanish version of that. That's a really terrific page where you have both Spanish and English. That's really nice. That's very nice. So are there any questions from the audience out there that I can see? I'm not seeing any questions popping up right now. And I'm thinking that we're talking about obviously navigating the night sky, but one of the things that I learned very quickly when I was first started astronomy is I tend to want to get my telescope out and go after some really specific objects. But the truth is just getting binoculars out there is a really great way to start. In fact, I ended up looping back. I started out trying to look specifically at objects, and I realized that if I just put away the telescope, got the binoculars out, and just started to figure out where everything was in the sky, that's the trick. Once you figure out where the basic constellations are, you really start finding that roadmap. Like John said, it's like once you find Michigan, you know where something else is. And once you get a couple objects figured out and kind of get your direction figured out, the trick though is the other part of it that I've learned over time is that the sky does change a little bit every night. And so that's why you need to have different apps or different maps for different months of the year, because it will change a little bit each night just because of the way we're rotating around the sun and so forth. Well, I'm not seeing any questions, guys. I don't know if we just did a good job or whatever else, but I think this is really very helpful. We will have this recorded and put onto, we have a YouTube account that we put these out there. If you go to our website, on the very top right, there's a button that says YouTube, and all these different monthly videos we've been posting out there. It'll take us a day or so. And of course, you can look on our Facebook page and you'll eventually find it there, some of the past ones. So we've been trying to do this every month. Once again, we have our next program will be on January 20th, and it'll be fun at the telescope. We're just going to put together a little hodgepodge of some fun things to talk about, and we'll keep doing this every month. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and sign off since I don't see any questions right now from the audience. But John and Chuck, thank you for doing a terrific job tonight, and I really appreciate your time. You spend the time. This is all volunteer effort, folks, so we appreciate everybody participating. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone.